Let me tell you something that people rarely talk about, something powerful, something often overlooked. The world loves to talk about what women can't do, how they need someone to complete them, how their power is conditional. But let's get real for a second. A woman alone is not lacking. She is not a fraction, a half, or a broken piece waiting to be fixed. She is whole, entire, enough. In business, in life, in the face of failure, the world tells women to step back, to wait for permission. But here's in today's world, where expectations and norms are often shaped by outdated traditions and filtered images, it's easy to fall into the trap of believing that a woman alone is somehow incomplete, that without a partner, a title, or society's stamp of approval, she is missing something. But that idea is not only false, it's dangerous. It undermines the truth of who a woman really is. A woman by herself is whole. She is not a fragment. She does not need someone to complete her, save her, or even validate her. Her worth does not increase with someone else's presence, and it certainly doesn't decrease with their absence. From the moment she begins to recognize her own voice, her own rhythm, her own thoughts, she steps into something many fear, true independence. That's because independence is misunderstood. It's not about isolation or loneliness. It's about the courage to stand as yourself, by yourself, and for yourself. It's about knowing that your identity is not tied to someone else's reflection, but shaped by your own choices, scars, wins, and lessons. When a woman begins to understand this, she unlocks a kind of strength that can't be taken away. It's the kind of strength that doesn't depend on applause, attention, or approval. It lives deep inside her, and it grows even when no one else sees it. Being whole without anyone else is about freedom. It's the freedom to define your own path, to build without needing someone else's blueprint, to fall and rise on your own terms. It means that your value is not placed in your relationships, but in your relationship with yourself. Too often, women are taught to seek completion in someone else. They are told they're better when they're attached to something, a relationship, a role, a label. But the truth is those things are additions, not the source. The source is already within. There is nothing more powerful than a woman who knows that she doesn't need to be rescued, that her journey may be walked alone at times, but never without purpose. She becomes a force when she stops waiting for someone to choose her and instead chooses herself every single day. When she stops asking, "Am I enough?" and starts saying, "I am already more than enough." That shift, though subtle, changes everything. It's important to understand that wholeness doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean she has all the answers or never makes mistakes. It means that even in her struggles, even when she's rebuilding from the ashes, she is not broken. She is evolving. She is learning. And through that, she is becoming even more complete. Her wholeness lies in her ability to keep going, to keep believing, to keep growing. Not because someone holds her hand, but because she's learned to hold her own. Wholeness is also about presence. When a woman is fully present in her life, owning her voice, her story, her desires, she commands respect, not because she demands it, but because she embodies it. She stops shrinking to fit someone else's expectations. She stops apologizing for her strength, her ambition, her independence. Instead, she uses all of it to build, to lead, to inspire. The world often underestimates a woman alone. They see her without a partner or a support system and assume she's struggling, searching, waiting. But what they fail to see is the quiet power she's cultivating. They don't see the late nights she spends mastering her craft, the silent battles she fights, the goals she hits without needing recognition. They don't see the freedom she feels when she walks into a room not to impress, but simply to be. And that's where her real power lies. Not in being chosen by others, but in choosing herself. We must challenge the narrative that strength in a woman comes only when she's surrounded or supported. True strength, the kind that lasts, comes from the inside. It's built in moments of silence, struggle, and solitude. And it's not something that's given. It's something that's claimed. So when a woman stands alone, unapologetic, focused, and full of fire, she isn't lacking. She isn't lonely. She isn't incomplete. She is whole. And in that wholeness, she becomes a reminder that the greatest power doesn't come from outside validation, but from deep inner belief. The world will eventually catch up, but she doesn't need to wait. She's already arrived. There's a quiet place most people try to avoid, a space where distractions fall away, where the noise of the world fades and you're left only with yourself. Many are afraid of it because it strips away all the comforts of external validation and forces you to confront your thoughts, your doubts, your insecurities. But this place, solitude, is not a punishment. For a woman, it can be one of the most powerful places to grow. In that silence, when no one is watching and no one is clapping, something remarkable happens. She begins to hear her own voice, and that voice, when truly listened to, becomes her compass. Solitude has a way of sharpening who you are. Without the pressure to perform for others or meet expectations, you start to ask deeper questions. What do I really want? What am I truly capable of? Who am I when no one is telling me who to be? These questions can't be answered in crowds. They're answered in moments of stillness, in reflection, in the time spent alone, not lonely but intentional. It's in these spaces that a woman begins to understand her own mind, her own dreams, and the strength she never knew she had. Being alone teaches discipline. There's no one pushing you to keep going except yourself, no one to blame if things go wrong, and no one to lean on when you feel like giving up. That can feel heavy, but in that weight, muscles are built. Mental, emotional, and spiritual. You learn to show up for yourself again and again, not because anyone is watching, but because you've made a commitment to your own growth. That's where real confidence begins. Not the kind that needs to be seen to exist, but the kind that becomes unshakable, because it's been tested in isolation. It's often in these quiet, unseen moments that the foundation for future success is laid. While others are distracted by noise, trying to fit in, trying to be seen, the woman who chooses solitude is building something solid. Her skills are being sharpened. Her vision is becoming clear. She's making mistakes, learning fast, adjusting and growing, not for show, but for real. And when the moment comes for her to step forward, it won't be as someone who stumbled into greatness. It will be as someone who earned it in the shadows. People often assume that support is the greatest asset in building a life or a business. While support is helpful, what truly sustains a woman long-term is the ability to stand on her own, to be her own motivator, her own strategist, her own protector. It's easy to move forward when you have a team behind you cheering you on. But when you move forward with no cheer, no applause, no encouragement except the fire inside your chest, that is when you prove to yourself that you're made of something real. Solitude also refines decision-making. In a world full of opinions, advice, and constant noise, it becomes hard to hear what's true for you. But when you're alone, you start to separate what matters from what's just noise. You stop making choices to please others, and instead start choosing based on purpose and alignment. That clarity can only come when there's space to think, to feel, to connect with your inner wisdom. And once that connection is made, it becomes almost impossible to shake. Some people may look at a woman who walks alone and assume she's missing something. But what they don't see is the resilience being formed. They don't see the self-awareness, the grit, the laser-sharp focus. They don't see the late nights of planning, the quiet mornings of reflection, the moments of doubt that turn into moments of breakthrough. They only see the outside. But real strength is built where no one sees. Over time, solitude stops feeling like something to escape and starts feeling like home. Not because it's easy, but because it's honest. It reveals who you are without decoration, and for a woman determined to grow, that honesty is invaluable. It allows her to move through the world with clarity, with conviction, with a grounded sense of self that doesn't waver with trends or opinions. There will always be those who think strength is loud, visible, and surrounded by people, but true strength, lasting strength, is often forged in silence. It's the woman who spent time alone with her purpose, who dared to keep going without praise, who prepared when no one believed. She's the one who arrives with power that can't be denied. So never underestimate the power of being alone. In that space, a woman learns to trust herself. And that trust becomes the foundation for everything else. Her confidence, her success, and her ability to lead, love, and live fully on her own terms. There's a turning point in every woman's life when she stops waiting for someone to tell her she's ready, waiting for permission to start, waiting to be seen, to be chosen, to be led. That moment, when she decides to stop seeking approval and starts acting on her own belief, is the beginning of real success. Because success doesn't come from external validation. It doesn't come from being in the right place at the right time, or from knowing the right people. It comes from believing in yourself enough to move, to act, to try, even when you're uncertain and even when you're alone. Belief is the fuel that drives all achievement. But belief alone isn't enough. Action must follow. That's where most people get stuck. They dream, they hope, they talk, but they never take the step. A woman who learns to trust her instincts and back herself, even when no one else does, becomes a force of nature. She knows that the path to success is rarely paved and never perfect, but she walks it anyway. She doesn't wait for the ideal moment or the perfect plan. She builds while moving. She fails, she adjusts, she keeps going. There is a certain kind of power that comes from making decisions for yourself. When a woman stops asking for opinions before every step, when she stops doubting every move and starts owning her direction, she taps into something unstoppable. That power isn't loud, and it isn't always recognized immediately, but it grows with every small win, with every risk taken, with every time she stood up and said, "This is what I'm doing," and followed through. She understands that confidence is not the absence of fear. It's doing it anyway. Every successful woman has faced doubt, uncertainty, and fear. The difference is, she didn't let it stop her. There is a myth that only the loudest, most visible people succeed. But success is not about volume, it's about consistency. The woman who keeps showing up, keeps learning, keeps trying, builds something unshakable over time. People may overlook her in the beginning. They may question her, ignore her, or underestimate her. But she's not doing it for them. She's doing it for her future self, for the vision she holds in her heart, and for the people she will one day impact because she dared to believe in herself when no one else did. Every time a woman steps forward based on her own belief and her own judgment, she gets stronger. She becomes less dependent on others' approval and more connected to her own truth. That inner compass is what separates those who succeed from those who stay stuck. Because challenges will come. Obstacles are guaranteed. But the woman who knows why she started, who trusts her own voice, will keep pushing. She doesn't crumble at criticism. She doesn't fold at failure. She learns. She adjusts. And then she continues. It's important to understand that success built on self-belief and action is not just about achieving goals. It's about becoming someone. The process itself shapes you. Every difficult decision, every uncomfortable step forward, every time you had to keep going with nothing but your own conviction, that changes you. It makes you resilient. It makes you focused. It makes you realize that your power was never outside of you. It was always inside, waiting to be activated by your own courage. Too many women are taught to play it safe, to only act when everything is certain, to wait until they are fully prepared. But the truth is, no one is ever completely ready. The only way to become ready is to begin. Start where you are, with what you have, and learn as you go. Every expert was once a beginner. Every leader was once unsure. But they made a decision to believe in themselves more than they believed in their fear. That's what sets them apart. The world changes when women stop asking and start doing. Not recklessly, but bravely. Not perfectly, but persistently. Success follows those who are willing to walk alone if they must, to make mistakes, to start small, and to keep building. The woman who chooses action over waiting, belief over doubt, and courage over comfort doesn't just find success, she becomes it. This journey doesn't require permission. It requires commitment. And once that commitment is made, the path becomes clear. Not because it's easy, but because it's yours. And there is no greater power than a woman who knows that her success depends on her ability to believe in herself and to act on that belief no matter what. There is a strength that doesn't scream, doesn't demand attention, and doesn't seek approval. It's the kind of strength that grows quietly, steadily, and deeply inside a woman who decides to rely on herself. The world often misinterprets independence in a woman. They see it as defiance, as rebellion, or even as loneliness. But independence is none of those things. It is not a reaction. It is a decision. A woman who chooses to walk her own path, to trust her own instincts, and to build her life on her own terms is not doing so because she has to. She is doing so because she knows she can. From an early age, many women are taught that safety and fulfillment come from attachment. Attachment to people, roles, titles, or approval. But the truth is, real security comes from within. When a woman learns to stand without leaning, to walk without waiting, and to speak without asking, she begins to embody a level of power that cannot be controlled or contained. She becomes her own source of strength, her own source of clarity, and her own source of peace. That is not arrogance. It is liberation. There's a freedom that comes with independence that few talk about. It's the freedom to choose without hesitation, to move without explanation, to evolve without needing permission. A woman who has embraced her independence doesn't fear solitude. She thrives in it. She doesn't crumble when no one is around to support her. She adapts. She builds. She leads. Not because she wants to prove something, but because she understands that her life is her responsibility. And with that responsibility comes incredible power. Power in its purest form is not about control over others. It's about control over self. The ability to make your own decisions, set your own standards, and define your own worth is the foundation of unshakable confidence. A woman who no longer waits to be chosen, acknowledged, or rescued has already freed herself from the most limiting expectations. She's no longer playing a role assigned to her. She's writing her own story, one decision at a time. Being independent does not mean being closed off. It means knowing the difference between support and dependence. It means welcoming help when it aligns with your values, but never being paralyzed without it. It's the strength to accept love without needing it to define you. It's the maturity to collaborate without losing your voice. Independence creates a solid foundation that allows everything else, relationships, careers, dreams, to be built with authenticity rather than fear. The world often underestimates the power of a woman who isn't afraid to walk alone. They assume she must be hard, cold, or difficult. But in reality, she is often the most grounded, the most focused, and the most free. She's not hard, she's clear, she's not cold, she's self-sufficient, and she's not difficult. She simply refuses to be defined by limitations that were never hers to begin with. Her independence is not a barrier, it's her launch pad. What truly makes independence a superpower is how it transforms obstacles into opportunities. When setbacks come, and they always do, the woman who is used to relying on herself doesn't break. She bends, she adapts, she looks inward, and finds solutions where others see dead ends. She doesn't ask, "Who's going to fix this for me?" She asks, "How do I grow from this?" That mindset is what separates those who keep moving forward from those who stay stuck. When you realize that no one is coming to save you, you stop waiting and start creating. You stop wishing and start doing. That shift from dependency to self-mastery is where true empowerment begins. It doesn't matter how slowly the path unfolds or how many times you have to start over. The point is, it's a more and more path. And walking it with your own strength, your own wisdom, and your own belief is what makes you unstoppable. A woman who is independent doesn't need to announce her power. It speaks through her actions, her choices, her presence. She becomes an example not just for others but for herself of what's possible when you decide to trust your own voice. And once that trust is established, it changes everything. It changes how you see challenges, how you treat yourself, and how you respond to the world. In the end, independence is not a wall, it's a doorway. It opens you to a life where you are no longer bound by fear or need, but guided by purpose. It allows you to love more deeply, live more fully, and lead more boldly. And the world needs more of that. Not women who are waiting to be rescued, but women who are rising by their own power, unafraid to stand alone because they know that standing alone, they are still enough. More than enough.